This section also requires the appraiser to define the subject property's neighborhood. It is important to note that no definition exists for a neighborhood. The definition of a property's neighborhood is subjective to the property itself. A property's neighborhood may consist of 10 blocks or 10 square miles. The appraiser describes the subject property's neighborhood and sets forth the neighborhood boundaries. Other characteristics such as land use and rate of growth are also noted. The appraiser will also describe the neighborhood as rural, suburban, or urban. Finally, the appraiser will describe the prevailing market conditions which support other conclusions in this section. This section contains facts concerning the property itself, not necessarily the improvements or building upon the property. The information reported in this section is factual and does not require any subjectivity on the part of the appraiser. The dimensions, acreage, shape, zoning classification of the property are reported. If the property is considered illegal according to the property zoning, the property may be difficult to finance. For example, if a residential home is built in a commercial zone, residential lenders may not be willing to lend on the property. If the property is illegal as far as zoning, many lenders will consider financing the property if the municipality is willing to issue a rebuild letter. In this letter, the appropriate municipality agrees to let the property be rebuilt for its current use in the event it is completely destroyed. If the property is classified as legal nonconforming, the property does not conform to the current zoning law, but the current use is typically grandfathered. Using our previous example, the zoning may have been changed to commercial after the residential home was built. Because the property was already built, the municipality recognizes the property as a legal use. This section also notes whether or not the property is in a FEMA special flood hazard area. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, administers the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP. FEMA creates flood maps which predict the likelihood of a flood based on many different factors. As you can imagine, the process of mapping the entire United States with respect to flood risk is a daunting task. If the property is a high-risk zone, the decision can be appealed directly to FEMA. Instructions for appealing flood risk determinations can be found on the agency's website, www.fema.gov. If an area is determined to be a high-risk area, federal law requires that flood insurance be purchased for the property. Lenders must verify the flood map status for each property on which they process a loan. Lenders must also notify the borrowers of the result of the flood map check. Flood insurance is required if FEMA maps show the property is in a flood zone. If the maps ever change and a property later becomes classified as in a flood zone, flood insurance will be required. Zone A requires flood insurance. Zone C does not. Borrowers who are not in a high-risk zone are not required to purchase flood insurance, but may do so if they wish. FEMA reports that 25% of major flooding happens in low-risk areas. Borrowers should understand that a typical homeowner's insurance policy does not insure against damage caused by flooding. Additional flood insurance is required if coverage against flooding is desired. This section also describes the utilities to the property such as electricity and gas. Any easements, encroachments, etc. are also reported. An easement grants another party a specific use of the property. This section contains specifics of the improvements to the property. Improvements refer to the building on the property, which in this case would be a single-family residence. Most of the information contained in this section is purely factual and becomes important when comparing the property to other properties in the market approach, which we will cover in the next chapter. The appraiser is asked to describe both the interior and exterior of the property and then rate the condition of the improvements. Items which the appraiser is asked to rate include the foundation, roof, windows, floors, walls, and finish. The property improvements must receive at least an average rating to avoid additional scrutiny from an underwriter. For example, if a property was given a fair rating, the underwriter may decline a loan due to the condition of the property.